Chapter 11, The Black Death. All the kids in the class started sniggering when the headmaster used the word dropping, except Zoe. Someone did a poo on the toilet floor, sir, asked one of the boys, laughing. Not a human dropping, an animal one, shouted the headmaster. Mr. Bunsen, the head of science, is studying it now to find out what animal it is from, but we suspect it to be some kind of rodent. Armitage wiggled and Zoe gulped. A rogue dropping must have plopped out unnoticed on the toilet floor. Stay very still, Armitage, thought Zoe. Unfortunately, Armitage was not a mind reader. If any pupil considers it acceptable to bring a pet into school, let me tell you it is forbidden. Strictly forbidden, pronounced the headmaster from the front of the class. It was funny seeing the two teachers stand next to each other for a moment. Such was the height difference. Any pupil found smuggling an animal of any kind into school will be instantly suspended. That is all. With that, he turned and left the room. Masterful, goodbye, Mr. Grave, called Miss Ogden after him. She watched him go wistfully. Then she turned back to her pupils. Right, you heard Colin, I mean Mr. Grave. It's forbidden to bring pets into school. The kids all looked around at each other and started whispering. Bring a pet into school, Zoe could hear them saying to each other. Who would be so stupid? Zoe sat still as she could, staring forward in silence. Silence, snarled Miss Ogden, and there was silence. It is not an opportunity to talk. Now, let's get back to the lesson. The Black Death. She underlined those 3 words on the board. So, how did the incredibly deadly disease travel all the way from China to Europe? Anybody? Asked the teacher without turning around. She was one of those teachers who asked questions but didn't wait for answers. So a millisecond after posting the question, she herself answered it. Nobody. Rats brought the fatal disease. Rats on board merchant ships. Zoe couldn't feel Armitage squirming around anymore and breathed a sigh of relief. He must have gone to sleep. But it wasn't the rat's fault, was it? Blurted out Zoe without putting her hand up. She couldn't believe her little friend's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents could be responsible for such incredible suffering. Armitage was far too sweet to hurt a soul. Miss Ogden spun round on her heels, which despite being high still didn't make her even of medium height. Did you speak, child? She whispered, as if it was a witch enchanting a spell. Yes, spluttered Zoe, now beginning to wish she'd kept her mouth shut after all. Forgive me, but I just wanted to say, Miss Ogden, that you really shouldn't blame the rats for this terrible disease, as it wasn't their fault. It was the fleas catching a free ride on their backs that are really to blame. All the kids in the class were now looking at Zoe in disbelief. Despite this being a rough school, and teachers often having to leave with nervous breakdowns, no one ever interrupted Miss Ogden, especially not to spring to the defence of rats. The classroom fell deadly silent. Zoe looked around. Every pair of eyes in the room was now glaring at her. Most of the girls looked disgusted, and most of the boys were laughing. Then, suddenly, Zoe felt like she had a tremendously itchy itch on her head. Quite the itchiest itch that ever had itched. It was, in a word, itch-tastic. What on earth is that? She wondered. Zoe, sneered Miss Ogden, now staring intently at the exact place where Zoe had an itch on her head. Yes, miss, Zoe asked perfectly innocently. You have a rat on your head.